Glad to know you're still there. To discuss the economic effects of the lockdown occasioned by the coronavirus pandemic, we have in our studio tonight Professor JEHU ONYEKWERE NNAJI, a distinguished professor of international law and global politics, and a former professor and visiting scholar to University of Kansas Law School. You're welcome to Searchlight.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Also joining us on Searchlight tonight is the ENUGU State Commissioner for Information, NNAJI JEHU. You are welcome to Searchlight.
Good evening.
All right. It's a pleasure having the Honorable Commissioner on Searchlight tonight, and I will welcome him with the first question. Honorable Commissioner, recently the two COVID-19 patients were had in ENUGU State recovered and they were discharged. And since that first case, ENUGU State has not recorded any COVID-19 positive cases. What do you think has helped the state to record this kind of success? Because in other states, the numbers keep increasing.
Well, first and foremost, I must say that ENUGU is grateful to God. We thank the Almighty God because all you have done can only be successful, can only be reasonable if it pleases God. And more to that, His Excellency, the Governor of the state, has also provided wonderful and unique leadership in crisis period like this. We had, like you said, our index cases, the people who returned from outside the country. To the glory of God, they were well managed, they were stabilized, they had recovered, they've tested negative on 2 occasions and they have left, fully been discharged. But these are resultant, the successes are resultant effects of policy situations that the government, under the leadership of Right Honorable Dr. Ifeanyi has put in place. You will recall that immediately the world started facing this massive challenge of this global pandemic. His Excellency, immediately presiding over the State Executive Council, made an immediate release of 330 million naira to the multi-sectoral committee to increase the level of the state's preparedness for, response to COVID-19. It is important to tell you that part of these resources that were released includes money that was released to procure additional ambulances and incident vehicle. It also includes money that was used for immediate relocation of the State Isolation Center from Kolari to Parkland.
All right, Honorable Commissioner, we quite understand that the state government has done a lot trying to contain the spread of this virus. But looking at the number of cases we had in ENUGU State, after the 2 cases, we never recorded any other case in ENUGU State. We want to know what may have prevented the spread, or maybe community transmission, or people even bringing this into
that's exactly what I was going to, and you stopped me. I'm talking about those measures.
Okay.
The measures the government has put in place. Those measures, like I said, from the release of the funds, went ahead to his address to the state where he put in place certain effective measures.
Okay.
One was the shutting down of all education institutions, primary, secondary, tertiary. 2 was asking all the civil servants, public and civil servants, to work from home. 3 was banning all social ceremonies, marriage ceremonies, burial ceremonies, masquerade festivals, operation of clubs and bars. He went ahead to also make regulations for commuter transportation in ENUGU. This included what made sure that keke could not take more than 2, buses could not take more than 2 on a seat, city cars could not take more than 3. And of course, in all these measures, His Excellency emphasized the fact that the protocol of the WHO and the National Center for Disease Control must be obeyed. These are protocols of physical distancing, regular hand washing, and of course, use of sanitizers in public places. Remember, he did not stop at that. He moved on to also improve on the measures as the numbers were growing globally. And that is where he put the measures that came effect 6 p.m. on 31st of March. That was the measure to close all interstate borders, shut down all markets of any kind, and only allow the places that deal with food, medicine, and essential materials of life.
All right.
So these whole measures put together ensured that ENUGU State remained as safe as it is today.
All right. Thank you very much, Honorable Commissioner. Let us hear from Professor ONYEKWERE. From your own assessment, he has enumerated some of the measures the state government put in place to make sure that the transmission of COVID-19 is contained in the state. Can you say that these measures have been very effective, especially in the areas of social control measure and some other aspects?
In order to understand very well the trajectory of this COVID-19, we need to put into perspective the way the virus has transmitted from Wuhan, China, to Italy, to United States, and then to Nigeria. We have been reliably informed by the Nigerian Center for Disease Control that the same strain of virus which originated in China is the same strain that is in Nigeria. Now, if that is the case, we have to juxtapose the different manifestations of symptoms. You know, talking about lockdown, this is one of the measures that the government has put in place, especially from the federal government, by locking down Lagos, Ogun, and FCT. The reason for this is quite obvious, because Lagos is an international boundary that allows people from different parts of the world to enter our country. It's understandable. Then Ogun State eventually inherited the same problem because it is a coterminous state with Lagos. So there's no hard and fast way of dividing Lagos and Ogun, because once you are in Ogun State, you may not know when you are in Lagos, because they share very close proximity. Now, in Enugu State, as the Honorable Commissioner has said, I'm very glad to know that the governor has put in place these palliatives. But the problem is that beyond what the governments have put in place, how does it trickle down to the ordinary man on the streets or at home? I took some samples of opinions, you know, the other day in Enugu. I discovered that a lot of people are just suffering. People are suffering. People cannot make ends meet. They cannot make their daily needs. They cannot meet up. You see, the government is already overwhelmed. Granted the fact that the government is doing its best, but it doesn't trickle down to the ordinary man the way it should be, because people cannot do what they're supposed to. But first and foremost, I have to accept the fact that Enugu State is in the hands of God, because there was something I observed last week. A bus that was carrying full load of food items packed up at the middle of the street, major intersection in Enugu State. I noticed it around very late in the evening. Then the same morning, the next day, I came and I saw the same bus with the food items intact. That is strange. It cannot happen in any other state. It shows that the Enugu people understand that people are suffering, because they know that the person that his boss has packed up is also suffering the same fate with them. So nobody carted away anything, unlike in other states. Now, let us try to bring it down to the ordinary man's way of consumption. Now, if we are looking at palliatives, the palliatives will go to the extent of ameliorating the sufferance of the people, because there are direct and indirect effects of this very COVID-19. So before we know it, we will no longer be talking about effects, we'll be talking about crisis. So if this situation progresses or snowballs from effect to crisis, then we have a serious problem in our hands. Because right now, people are law-abiding. Nobody is doing anything that is contrary to the law. But remember, when people are pushed, there's the gradation of hunger. If you are hungry, there's a level of hunger you will be subjected to. You lose your sanity. So, and we do not want to go that far. We don't want to go that terrain. You see, I will be of the view that this lockdown should be relaxed to allow the ordinary man to find his own daily bread. So the social distancing should be in place. Yes, that's I agree. Then sanitizer at public places and face masks, yes, those are also okay. But the total lockdown is not what we want, because the ordinary man will be affected unduly. And there's no way, because government already has limited budget. Okay. So there's no way the government can provide for everybody. This is the point.
Let us hear from the Enugu State government spokesperson. He mentioned some of the economic effects of these control measures, especially in small businesses. You know, some people depend on their daily earnings to survive and fend for their families. Are there a kind of plans by the state government to cushion the effects of the measures they are bringing on these small businesses, these small and medium, you know, businesses, in fact?
Well, thank you very much. I also appreciate with great respect the professor, because he's been very honest with accepting that Enugu is in the hands of God. He's been very honest with accepting that the character of our people are distinct from the character of people you see everywhere. When you have good leadership, there's a tendency for the people to behave well. And we sincerely appreciate the fact that this good leadership is turning into good followership and good character. Now, as to the issues concerning the pressure on the people, look, there is no government except a government that is practically insensitive, that does not understand that this period requires sacrifice. If you listen to His Excellency's address to the state when he put in these first measures, he first started by appreciating the fact that these measures we are going to put in place are going to put some pressure on the people, but that they are very necessary measures to protect the lives of the people, because between life and safety of life and protection of life and the sacrifices we are making, if you put them on a balance, you obviously know which one to tilt to. That's notwithstanding, the government is very sensitive. The government appreciates the fact that it is running on the mandate of 95.4% of registered voters that cast their vote to elect this government. So, without making noise, government has been doing quite a lot to see that this pain is gone. I'll give you an instance. It's not about noise making. First, before we decided on shutting down the borders and the markets, we didn't have a lockdown in Enugu. Enugu doesn't have a total lockdown. Before we decided on that measure, we understood the psychology of the Enugu city vis-a-vis the 17 local governments. Now, a good percentage of the economy of the state is run on the public service. So, before we shut down, before these measures came in on 31st, where short salaries were paid on 23rd. So, at least the public service was strengthened to move on. That is one. Two, as soon as we shut down, we discovered about the 30th of March that the food items in the market has skyrocketed. Without making noise, we played the indices of supply and demand. We had to go back to the bank of our efforts, because in the past 5 years we've been building agriculture. In the past 5 years we've been strengthening our local farmers. So using the forces of demand and supply, we released some of our products into the market without making noise. That's why you saw the launching of the Coast City rice. And immediately you saw rice that was selling for 23,000, 24,000. Now you can buy 16,000 to 18,000. Same happened with other food items. That was also a process of palliative to intervene at that stage. Now we are going further. As of yesterday, I can tell you that all medical workers in this state, in all the ministries they work in, had a 25% increase in their basic salary because of the dangers of what we are going through. This is part of the palliative measures. And we go on. And you can understand, I'm coming. You're going to ask me what is happening to the ordinary poor man on the street.
Especially the businesses,
no,
those that closed their shops.
I'm coming.
How would they recover from this?
Have been closed.
Would there be any kind of assistance?
The shops that have been closed were closed because it was the most necessary measure at that point in time to save the lives of the people. Okay. Now the state government is conscious of it. Despite the efforts of the federal government through the CBN to help small and medium-scale industries, the state government is also coming. I'll give you an instance. What the state government has done, we are going into a farming season. We have increased the capacity of our local farmers, particularly those farming rice. Because if you go around, all the farmers we've been training and financing for the past 5 years, we have become major off-takers, and government is taking off the rice as soon as it drops. By that process, we are providing cash-based economy to them so that they can buy inputs and get back into production.
All right.
We're not stopping at that. The governor is providing critical leadership. He is sitting down every hour, reviewing the situation, taking advice from the multi-sectoral committee, from the State Economic Advisory Committee, from the security agencies, and of course from well-meaning leaders in Enugu, and reviewing the processes. I can assure you, there is general hunger due to effects of COVID-19. But in Enugu, the effects will be less than what it is every other place, because gradually we are coming with measures. And as the days pass by, you will see new measures that will touch the lives of the ordinary man in the state.
All right. There is this other issue concerning how palliatives are being distributed. I would like Professor ONYEKWERE to tell us how these things can be well coordinated so that people that are supposed to get them, that they reach to them.
Yes, talking about palliatives, permit me to say here, like in other climes, it mustn't be the government that will provide palliatives.
Of course.
Personally, myself, I've provided palliatives. I produce sanitizer and give to people. I gave a lot of people bags of rice. So these are the best I can do from my own personal ability. Then government on its own can still do much better. Then I also invite private individuals who have the ability to support government in this area, because obviously the government is overwhelmed. There's no doubt about that, because nobody planned for this COVID-19. Nobody knew. It just came out of the blues. As at early this year, nobody knew that we would be in this very crisis. So I'm sure the different governments that are affected, badly by this, are already aware that they had a budget and already having extra budgetary expenses. So it's quite difficult. So I believe that the way the scenario the Honorable Commissioner has painted, gives us an indication that the government is planning well in this direction to make sure that this palliative reach the people. So what I'm only saying is that as we are, experiencing this difficulty in Enugu, I'm talking about Enugu now because I know other states are worse. Like you rightly mentioned, there's no total lockdown in Enugu. I pray there shouldn't be a total lockdown, because we should agree, and the governor, I believe, is watching. There shouldn't be a total lockdown because Enugu stays in the hands of God. So I believe that we have had only 2 cases so far, and I believe we will not have any other one, and we'll continue to live in peace.
All right. The Honorable Commissioner, of course, the coronavirus pandemic is having a toll on the global economy. And just early this week, the price of crude oil started nosediving. Don't you think this will affect not only Nigeria, but Enugu State? Nigeria depends a lot on crude oil. And like states, they always wait for allocation. How would Enugu State prepare for such a worst scenario that will come after post-COVID-19?
Well, the truth is that, just like you said, first let me express the gratitude of the state to people like Prof, who in their own rights have made efforts to reach out to people that are poorer than them and people who need help, and provided sanitizers. That shows patriotic citizenship. And the state will always be proud of people like this. The state is also very proud of people in both private business, corporate organizations that are also giving their own levels of support. That shows a state that is working together. Like His Excellency says, election ended when 95% of those votes were cast. This is period of governance where we want everybody together. Now, coming towards the economic effect. You see, the economic effect is strong, is serious, is hard. But there is something good about it. When I say good in quotes, it is global.
Of course, it's global.
So you are going to see stronger measures from the global community, IMF, World Bank, European Union. The stronger economies know that it is a must that there must be support for the weaker economies. Because the country, COVID-19 has taught the world that nobody is in isolation. As of today, America is suffering 50,000 plus deaths. Italy's story is such that can only be recounted like the story of the Israelites in Egypt. So is Spain. So is UK. So, for once, difficulty is going to teach us to share our common humanity, to look at humanity as a common base. And so I believe that if lives are saved, if these necessary measures are respected, once coronavirus is contained, the world economy is only going to take some time, but it's going to wake up again.
Okay, we pray that the economy bounces back as soon as possible after coronavirus. Prof, so many people are afraid that there will be food crisis, hunger after coronavirus. How do you think that states like Enugu State, he has mentioned a lot of things they are doing in the agricultural sector. What can we do to make sure that our people do not suffer hunger during this period?
Yes, actually, with regard to that, I was about saying that right now, as we speak, there is a problem in the oil industry because US and Iran are already beginning this war of wars in the Gulf, which is the Strait of Hormuz, where the US president has instructed that they shoot down any Iranian vessel that threatens US vessel. So that will have a trickle-down effect on our economy because remember we are running a petro economy. Of course, we cannot obviate the fact that because we have agrarian economy in Enugu State, we do not depend on oil. That would be a total fallacy. So I believe that this oil money comes down to Enugu State in one way or the other. So what Enugu State has to do now, just like the Honorable Commission has mentioned, is to empower the base. Those are the farming base who are able to bring food produce at the right time and at the right prices. So this will help to, engineer the economy in the right direction.
All right. Just briefly, Honorable Commissioner, can you talk to the people of the states what they should do to protect themselves and protect others?
Well, the good and wonderful people of Enugu State, I bring you the love and respect of the state government. Your government, the government you elected, the government you are proud of. The government is determined to ensure that COVID-19 is properly managed in Enugu, that our response is swift, is strong. That is why Enugu has 3 isolation centers, one in Osaka, one in Parkland, the other one at the designated, what do you call it, the designated diagnostic center. That is why if you go to Kolari Hospital, you will see massive renovation work and fresh construction because we are preparing for the worst situation, even though we know we won't get there. So the people of Enugu, you can be sure that is why His Excellency the Governor has instituted a group life assurance for all medical workers. That is why he has also approved weekly allowances for all the workers in the front line, medical workers, drivers, ambulances. What we beg you to do is to please ensure that you maintain physical distancing, you wash your hands regularly, and in case you have any suspected case or have any problem, please call our helpline.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for making it to Searchlight today. And our viewers, I'm sure you know now that you have a role to play. Protect yourself and protect others while government plays its own role. We still expect to be with you the same time next week on Searchlight. Good night.
Looking for the perfect getaway?